Okay, so Andre, how are you doing, mate?
I'm fine. How about you today?
You're very good, thank you. So we were sort of um, loosely scheduling to talk about Machiavelli's Prince, which is or was his masterpiece in relation to the power hierarchical system and
Yeah,
how to run governments and all that sort of thing.
yeah,
Um, but you've only just started to read The Prince, and so
yeah,
probably it will be better left until you've finished that, till you've
yeah,
made some notes and highlighted some topical regions that we can get into. Yeah.
yeah. Because there's all kinds of things one could connect to later individuals and so on. Also, I also found a chapter within. Men Among the Ruins by Julius Evola, which has actually the name Bonapartism, Machiavellianism, and yeah, something like that. What was the chapter? So it's interesting when one can connect the different dots to each other.
Yes. Well, that book was written in the 1500s, if I remember correctly,
Yeah,
and
the Machiavelli book. Yeah,
yeah, and uh, people all over the world for this past 500 years have studied that book, um, and it's been a great aid to them in their ruling the masses, their machinations within parliament or as kings or queens. I would think that everybody, every single leader on the planet has read The Prince, because it is a how to govern a country with all of the potentials and the pitfalls and the do's and the don'ts, and all the reasons why. And it's a really, really powerful read. And it was banned. The Catholic Church banned it, I think, for about 200 years. But because it was so powerful, ultimately, they couldn't prevent it from spreading like wildfire all over the world.
yeah,
And so, even modern leaders, I'm sure, will be very familiar with Machiavelli and
yeah,
all of the tactics and machinations, because it's human nature. And so it used to be considered, and it was said to have been the work of the devil and, demonic and this, that, and the other. But now, you see, with the advent of greater sophistication, people realize and accept that it is, in actual fact, based on human nature. And the reason why it was banned and it was disliked is because it's just too close to the bone. Because nobody wants to accept that we are all Machiavellian.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, all not all leaders might use all the tactics, but at least an amount of the tactics within Machiavellianism in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you see, if we were going to have this in-depth conversation, then I would be drawing a simile to modern times to see
Yeah,
where we can see evidence of it being deployed, and um, it's kind of like power at any cost. You've got to do anything to remain in power, but the least thing you want to achieve is to be hated by the people that you're ruling over. Because if
yes,
you are hated by the people that you rule, it's only a matter of time when they're going to want your head on a spike. But
yeah,
it's very important that they are terrified of you,
yeah,
but respect you and have an adherence with most of the policies, even though some of them may not serve them, but at least society can see that most policies do provide stability and growth for the people. Because if you can't find stability and growth in a leader, then you don't want that leader, do you? Because that's what society is about. It's about stability. It's about growth. It's about going forward and living better lives. And so, if you are an outright despot, and i.e., like Louis the was it 16th or 17th, who they cut his head off, and Mary Antoinette, was that Louis the 16th?
Yeah. Was it then?
Or Louis the
Uh,
14th?
I don't know, because the French Revolution was 1789, I
Yeah,
think. So,
or
yeah.
1879, wasn't it?
Uh, was it? No, no, 1789 was the French Revolution. I think that actually.
1789. Let's just
Yeah.
have a look at that. I'm just going to Google that. 1789. French Revolution. Yes, well done. French Revolution. And so let's just see which Louis it was. Louis the 16th. Louis the 16th.
Hmm.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, they weren't respecting the masses. They treated them with discontempt, and so it obviously didn't fare well for them.
Yeah.
But you would have thought Machiavelli, being around 500 years before then, or 200 years before then, or 300 years, in fact, you would have thought they would have read that, and somebody would have brought it to their attention. But
Yeah.
obviously, it seems that they didn't. So they made a mistake. So they didn't follow the blueprint, and so they lost their lives. But when people like Stalin, who was responsible for killing millions and millions, but at the same time, he was loved by the people due to the propaganda. The massive amount of propaganda, which always depicted him in the best possible sense, because he had propaganda for the kids, he had propaganda for the youth, he had propaganda for the workers, he had propaganda for the elderly, he had propaganda which hit all facets of society and kept them completely brainwashed.
Yeah. And all that, all the ideologies that popped up incrementally came from the French Revolution in a way, because it became more oriented toward the people, where when it was aristocracy, it was oriented always upwards.
Yeah,
And so on. Then, when the French Revolution, it started to degenerate, and also the monarchy, yeah, it was both an inner revolution within the parliament, but also that it went a little bit haywire, so to speak.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if
And
we look at
we
the
have the political system based on that. Right and left came from the French Revolution. The revolutionaries sat to the left in parliament, and the monarchs sat to the right, so to
right,
speak.
well, we had
Before we
something.
oriented it like that, upward and down instead. Now it
Yeah,
became more like plain horizontal, so to speak.
yeah. So in Great Britain, we had the British Revolution with Oliver Cromwell and the Roundheads against Charles I. And Charles I had to flee to France um, because the people weren't happy. He was spending too much money on his own pleasures and wars that were unnecessary and weren't going anywhere. It was draining the country. And so, yeah, look, at the end of the day, in the old days, let's say, I think it was something like 1520 when King John II of Great Britain was forced into acknowledging the Magna Carta, which was the Great Charter, written by politicians and the people, which brought the monarchy into line, because again, King John was just doing what the fuck he wanted to. He thought it was his God-given right to do whatever he wanted to with the people's money, or with the taxes that he got from the people. And the people said, it ain't happening like that. No. And so he had to realize that unless he wanted a revolution on his hands, then he had to give the people, a certain power and freedom. And so the Great Charter, was put into place. And that, what was the sort of staple diet for politicians and monarchs all over the world. They all look at the British Magna Carta as like blueprint. So if that was 1520, then Machiavelli was the similar sort of time. So between the two of them, then the world had a shakedown, and leaders knew that they couldn't just have carte blanche with what they wanted to do with the revenue of the country. They had to fall in line with the wishes of the people, and realize that they were in a very privileged place only because of the people. And if they fucked with the people, then they'd end up in revolution and they'd lose their lives.
Yeah.
So with today, the mastery is, of course, propaganda, and propaganda is the use of power. Because Machiavelli states that, look, if you want to conquer a particular state or nation, then you absolutely have to live within that nation, to have your ear very close to the ground, so you hear all the murmurings and you can nip in the bud any beginnings of a revolution. If you've got your police and your Gestapo all over the place, then they're going to hear everything that's going on, and the people are going to be much more afraid than if you're not in the country. If you're trying to run that country, and this was the fall of the Roman Empire, you see, because they couldn't be everywhere at the same time with the massive amount of power that it needed. And
Yeah.
so ultimately, the empires fell because unless the empire could keep a vassal or an army in that particular nation, which was bigger and more powerful than the indigenous ones, then they was always going to lose. But when we look today, you see, Machiavelli says, look, it's kind of like you have to be everywhere at once. And so the Romans, they did it pretty well for a good few hundred years, because they would send, hundreds of thousands of soldiers into another country, along with, politicians to lead the people. They could do that up to a point, but it's only when they started to spread their resources too thin that fell down. But politicians today, they don't need to send armies all over the world. They do it by propaganda, and you can
Yeah.
bring a country down solely on propaganda.
Yeah. And also, uh, when people's receptivity is heightened through all the kind of social media and the addiction to their smartphones and so on, and they take it as entertainment, then it just passes into the brain and become the programming, so to speak.
Yeah, and so I would think that Stalin was the first really to use propaganda in any real meaningful national way, because it was a very, very fine art with him. He absolutely plastered the whole of that huge country with propaganda, which hypnotized the people into believing something that wasn't actually the case. And you see now, you've got people like Jordan Peterson, who decry Stalin as probably the biggest murderer on the planet. And yet the people at the time never considered him to be that, because they weren't aware of it. They never learnt about the millions of people dying, in the country, because they had no food, they were starving, this, that, and the other. The propaganda machine just kept pumping and pumping and pumping. And so
Yeah.
kind of like the whole nation suffered from um, political dissonance.
Yeah.
That they may have seen a certain reality, but they're hearing another reality, and the other reality is so powerful, which is pervading all over the country, that it starts to get people to even disbelieve their own eyes.
Yeah, it becomes a cognitive dissonance, and when they are in that state, they choose to bet on the safe card, so to speak. And the
Yeah,
safe card is what saves their mind. That yeah, this is the right thing.
yeah, and
The
so.
strongest. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to say, even today, look, if we look back in recent times over our lifetime, then you can see that the Machiavellian tactics are fully deployed, and they're
yeah,
deployed via fear creation, which is terrorism, and it has been terrorism of many different varieties, whether it's been Islamic terrorism or it's been Irish terrorism or any other separatist variety of terrorism. There's always this terrorism which they've always deployed, and in modern times we've started to learn that most of this terrorism is in actual fact false flags, because if this Islamic terrorism was so pervasive, say like 20 years ago, and then overnight, as soon as COVID arrived, that variety of terrorism disappeared. And it's
yeah,
like all of the Al Qaeda, they had COVID and perished because there wasn't a single terrorist attack which was attributed to them, and I don't believe there has been to this day. And so, therefore, you can see that Machiavelli has been deployed, and they just keep shifting the goalposts all the time. And so, when the energy started to deplete from COVID, then all of a sudden it was bird flu or monkeypox, and then all of a sudden it's the war in Ukraine, and
yeah.
then it's a potential again with the Third World War with China, and they're always doing this, and so it's very Machiavellian even today all over the world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And they shift the focus all the time because, okay, we do something here, but we have a big story here. So we take away the focus from this thing here.
Yeah.
So,
But the thing about it, Andre, and this is why I am always with the powers that be. I'm always there with them over the man in the street. I don't have any respect for the man in the street because invariably they're stupid, they're gullible, they're weak, they're jealous, they're envious, they're lazy. They're a whole bunch of shit, which is the human being. And so, what people say in relation to Machiavellian tactics is, well, look, what you fucking gonna do with a bunch of fucking retards? Because this is what happens. If, like, some of the Caesars and monarchs and leaders around the world act benevolent, then the masses consider them to be weak, and then they take advantage, and then maybe certain sectors will start a coup and start a political opposition, want to get rid of the monarchy, or all different sorts of things. And so, well, why does this come about? It comes about when the human being has got too much time on his hands and isn't afraid of the ramifications of his actions. If he knows that if he commits treason, then he's fucking dead, and in some nations, his whole fucking family's dead as well, because that's always the biggest threat. Because even lots of people, they don't care about their own death. They're very politically motivated, and they'll do anything. But if they are threatened, if you do that, then we're going to kill every single one of your family members. They do care about that. And so that stops them. And so, that level of Machiavellian activity is really, really powerful. But I think the general consensus is that it's absolutely necessary. And that's why all nations operate under this terror manipulation. There's not a country or a nation on the planet that doesn't operate under terror or deployed terror.
yeah, in one or the other way.
Yeah,
Either it is mentally or it's like in a physical way, so to speak.
yeah. And so
And
when you read that book, I'm pretty sure Machiavelli, he speaks about, and he gives lots of instances of Roman empires or emperors and
Yeah,
lots of other
a lot
nations.
of different names that I really haven't much historical clue on to begin with. Also,
Yeah.
you know, that's nice in a way because then one realizes I need to know a little more about that. You know.
Yeah. Well, you see, he'll tell you, some incredible stories. But if you listened to, like, there's a series on YouTube, and it's about Roman emperors spreading over 400 years or something like that. And when you know what people will do to keep power or to attain power, then there is no holds barred. Everything is on the table. And even one of the Roman emperors, he was so paranoid that he wouldn't even marry anyone outside the family. He decided that the safe bet was to copulate with his sisters. And he copulated with three of his sisters until, in the end, the last one killed him, conspiring with another one of the sisters to poison him. And so, good God, you've got a whole bunch of shit going on simply because if people aren't clever, if they are weak, if they are tyrants, if they have failings in any fucking realm, then it's not the outside that you really have to worry about. It's the inside. It's your men. It's your servants. It's your people. How many kings and emperors and leaders have died from poison or strangulation or stabbing from somebody who was working within, their fraternity? Many, many.
Yeah. But I also think that part of history, I ask myself, has it always been like that, or has it always been? It has been such a shift as that we really can't discern with our modern eyes, really. So that if I even look at like Julius Evola, and he talks about that. After the French Revolution, it becomes more people oriented. Everything that comes after the French Revolution is a form of egalitarianism because democracy is a form of egalitarianism where you have your saying in one way, you know, and also socialism is a form of egalitarianism, but even nationalism is egalitarian in a way. On a national level, we are of the same people, we are of the same race, so to speak. And
Yeah.
that's an interesting part because nationalism is actually very new in a way. It's a baby from the French Revolution, national romanticism. Before that, it was feudal states and so on.
Yeah, and nationalism can very easily lead into fascism. It can very easily lead into some form of dictatorship because if you are so um, concerned about your own particular peoples, then you're going to put your peoples over and above any other peoples, and then you're going to have some sort of xenophobia. You're going to be concerned about foreigners and anybody else infiltrating, and so then you're going to be looking for a leader which is going to be, very nationalistic, and then you're going to get people like Hitler and Stalin. Exactly. Who's that? Who's that?
Benito Mussolini.
Okay, Mussolini. So yeah, I mean, you see, Mussolini, he jumped on the side of Hitler because he was hedging his bets that he was convinced that Hitler was going to win, and so he didn't want to be on the wrong side.
Yeah.
So he made a wager, and the wager, as it happens, turned out to be wrong, and so he lost his life. because he betted the wrong person. Now, at that time, there was three fascist states. There was Germany, there was Italy, and then there was Spain. And Spain, Franco, the leader in Spain, he opted to be neutral. He was the smartest because he thought, well, I'm not backing either one of these because I don't know which way this is fucking going to go, but the chances are it's going to be bad. And so he
Yeah.
opted for being neutral. And if you are neutral, when either side wins, then you are still going to be in existence. They're going to have no reason to want to destroy you. And you will reap the benefits of it. And so
Yeah.
that's what
And they
happens.
did.
Yeah, and so of course Mussolini lost his life because he backed the wrong horse, but
Yeah.
Franco lived another 30 years, after the Second World War, and I think he died naturally. And so that's very Machiavellian. That's with forethought and vision of who you're going to back. And so when we look at politicians, these days you see politicians that only come into power for 4 years, which is the minimum term. But if that politician doesn't have good faith with the people, and then they are ousted at the end of 4 years, all of their camp are going to be ousted with them. And so we saw that with the advent of the Democrats getting in power over the Republicans, they tarred all the Republicans with the same brush as evil Trumpists and this, that, and the other. And they didn't want anything to do with any of them. And they treated them all like the fucking devil or like the enemy. And now, when the tables have turned, after 4 very, very short years, you see that the Democrats, well, they're in an absolute fucking mess. And they're not getting all the big money from the big jobs and the big positions. They're a nobody. They're a nobody fucking team and a nobody party because they lost. And now everybody's backing the victor, or afraid of backing the vanquished. So it's all Machiavellian. And like I say, you see, if we look for the reasons as to why the world is Machiavellian, then you can't just say it's about the leaders wanting power. No, because the individual want power also, and they look to their leader to give them power. They want their modicum of power as well. And if you don't give them power, then they're going to be taking your power away, i.e. communism. You see, in time, communism could never fucking work because people always get ideas above their station, and they always want something that they're not given by the state. And that's natural. We have to be able to go and get what we want. Because, if you see, a friend of mine, Patrick, he's wrote this book about some sort of a utopia, a world without money. And I said to him when I was speaking with his son that, it would absolutely never work because human nature would never allow it to, because human beings are not interested in a beautiful community and everyone loving each other. They're absolutely not. They're interested in self-fucking motivation. Lots of people, they want to self-better themselves, and so they're all striving for something which they can get more than the Joneses. It's very important for the human being to distinguish themselves from the average, from the lowest rung of the ladder. Nobody wants to be on the lowest rung of the fucking ladder. So therefore, they're going to be working harder to achieve things because they want a bigger car, they want a bigger house, and this, that, and the other. And that isn't communism. And so therefore, people like that all start to murmur, that start to create political parties to overthrow the communism. And so I said to Patrick, I said, look, in 300,000 years of human existence, this is as good as it's probably ever going to get. The only way it's going to get better is when the human being has more and more of its personal autonomy taken away from it. When we become cyborgs, when we become governed by AI, then things will be smoother, but there won't be a human being left anymore.
Yeah, but that's also a definition of better. What is better? Uh, because when it comes to I I I always with this little word when I say it AI in
Yeah,
English
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I say OA in Swedish. AI.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So uh, that is what I look upon it is to fall into the matter, the material prison. It hints about something better, but is worse because you will be imprisoned within that system instead of a spiritual human being
yeah,
instead. Because
yeah,
also think that we have fallen from spiritual heights, so to
yes,
speak. And even when this book I Ching, Tao Te Ching, he believed that we were even then have fell from even higher heights, so to speak.
yes,
So then we come to back to an ideal state, which is the Garden of Eden. One could say ideally, or it one could talk about the mythological age like Hyperborean, Atlantis, and all that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And there, I think, is really where the true spiritual essence is instead of this other fake thing, so to
Yes,
speak.
well, you see, it's a very, very good point, and it's a very interesting point, and this is leading on to what I want to speak about after this conversation, because when we look in Genesis, and we see that there is a depiction of uh, a blissful way to live in ignorance. But it's with the advent of the acquisition of knowledge, which then takes us out of our bliss. It takes us out of the kingdom of God and it takes us into a living hell. Now, I am always saying in many, many of my videos, oh, I'm being taken out of the kingdom of God. And what I'm meaning by that, and very few people will grasp the magnitude of it because they don't think broadly enough, but the kingdom of God is actually just a absolute tranquil peace of mind. There is no extra dimension or anything like that. The dimension is within our consciousness, the same as everything is. Every single thing pertaining to the human being, to the cosmos, probably is within consciousness. And so when we come back from our fallen state, which is that of the acquisition of knowledge, because when we've got knowledge, then we've got ambition. And when we've got ambition, then we start to be Machiavellian and all these different sorts of things. And so if we don't have ambition, and if we just live very, very humbly, like monks do, that's why they go into these retreats. They have to get the fuck away from temptation. Because if they're walking down the street and they're seeing the opposite sex, and maybe they get offered the opposite sex, and they see, very, very tasty food that they wouldn't normally have, and, opportunities, then they'll be traumatized because it's natural human instincts to, desire. So the monks and the gurus and the Buddhists and everything, they take themselves away from society, like the Quakers and Mormons and people like that. They take themselves away into a very, very dull world, because in that dull world they can actually concentrate on the more important thing, which is your consciousness and your homeostasis and your still mind, and then you are actually in the kingdom of God. But you see, because it's depicted in the Bible, and the writers knew about this 3,500 years ago. Well, they already had a breast of human nature, and they already knew that if you give human beings knowledge, that's when it all goes fucking wrong. Because with knowledge, the acquisition of knowledge comes the acquisition of power. It's indistinguishable. When you are very, very endowed with knowledge, then you potentially have power. Whether you use it or not is a different thing, but someone is going to use it. And that's why we've got the human nature and the condition at this moment in time. So when we look back, we see an ideal world We see a utopianism in the Garden of Eden, but it could never be a reality, because all we've got to do to destroy that is just learn a little bit. As soon as we learn something, as soon as we use our ego to investigate something and gain knowledge, that's when we're taken outside of the Garden of Eden, the kingdom of God.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I am uh, prepared to kind of think that there has been this oneness where we only were one, then we were split from God at a certain point, so to
Okay,
speak.
hold that thought. Just going to get a glass of water. So you believe that there has been a variety of utopia where we were much more congenial. We never sought any power out. We always had our fellow man's best interest at heart. You see, as soon as we start to have our best interest at heart, that's when the whole utopia falls to pieces. And so, how do we get over that? How do we get over our survival instinct?
Yeah.
Because look,
So
Andre,
the survival instinct is the beast, symbolically speaking, so
yeah,
to speak.
yeah,
It's the desires. I want food, sex, and so on. You know,
yeah,
but one could train it a bit by fasting, for an example. I done that for many years, you know, uh, and I can do it for a long time. I do it every day. If I train, like let's say, uh, 3 in the daytime, I will eat my first food directly after I have trained, and so on.
yeah.
So that's one way, in a practical manner, one could train it. It's fasting, sustaining from the urges every now and then, and not one doesn't neither want it to build up to be an neurosis or something like that. Uh, so I think it is like apply that kind of energy which is within the urge into something else, so to
Right.
speak. But it shouldn't either be like I push that aside. I naturally go this way instead, you know.
Hmm. But we
And
have
I
so
think
many.
it's possible, yeah.
Yeah, we have so many desires. We have desire for personal freedom. We have desire for company. We have desire for unity. We have desire for sex and power and uh, lots of regions of the human being needs satiating, and they are very, very powerful. And how the Buddhists overcome them is in a state of apathy, effectively in deep meditation, whereby they escape their thinking egoic mind. Through meditation. So, if you at any given opportunity you escape the ego, then you can suppress the desires. But as soon as you're back in the ego, the desires come back because we are desire making machine. And if you take yourself away, and when we read the story of the Buddha, initially he joined a small group of ascetics, didn't he? Who
Yeah.
who considered that it was beneficial to starve themselves into purity. And Siddhartha, Buddha, he looked at that after some time and he said, well, all we are doing here is getting lean, unhealthy, uncomfortable, and unhappy. And he didn't consider that that was the way. So that was when a fair maiden, brought him a bowl of porridge, and it was most delightable. And then he thought, well, that's the way forward. I don't need to starve and impoverish the vessel that I'm in, but or I don't want to overindulge either. So to eat a certain amount, to at least stave off one of those desires, because if you're hungry, the body is going to go into survival mechanism, and it's going to be almost impossible to stop thinking about how you're going to continue to live. You're going to be thinking all different sorts of stuff, which is natural.
Yeah.
And so then if you go away from people and you don't have any people to bounce around ideas and ideologies, and you only got yourself, and you keep slipping into the deepest of meditations outside of the ego, then okay, hypothetically, you can do it. And this is why we always hear these stories of gurus going off to caves. It's like you have to live in a fucking cave to be able to do it, because in society you can't do it.
Hmm.
So what I'm saying is, I don't believe that there could be a utopia, because as soon as we get into society, particularly if it's a male and female one, and we know that it doesn't even have to extend to male and female, because we look at the Middle East, and the Middle East, they weren't too interested in girls. They were much more interested in boys, men interested in boys, because there's no complication with offspring, and so that they thought, well, this is why all the Greeks, had their boys, and this is why in the Greek language, in the early days, there was no such word for homosexual, because it wasn't a thing. Everybody was one.
Yeah, but that is kind of a historical misunderstanding, or conscious misunderstanding of the Greek society, because they have tried to depict the Greece like that, even if it was like that. But the most homosexual of the cities wasn't Athens; it was actually Crete,
Right.
because they had some story about the god who had intercourse with men, or something like that, and was why it was like that. But it was still very, very frowned upon in Greece society and so on. And while it was common in certain sectors, it wasn't like oh, the everybody was a homo. Because if we look at like Marcus Aurelius, he says somewhere in his book that his father fought against boyish love, or something like
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah.
So it existed, but it was still very frowned upon, so to speak.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it depends what you listen to, isn't it, or what you read. But it was very,
Yeah.
very prolific, and of course, it was prolific for very good reasons, because it meant that if you had uh, sexual partners of the same sex, then you weren't going to have any offspring. So you weren't going to be procreating in a realm which it was inappropriate to do so. For instance, if you're a politician, if you're a leader, or if you're anybody, if you start having sex with girls or women, then there's going to be ramifications of that, unless you're really, really careful. But with boys, you don't have to take no precautions, and you can get as drunk as you like and do whatever you want, and you're never going to have any proof of what actually took place. Um,
Yeah.
and when we look into Alexander the Great, he was said to be gay. When
Yeah,
we look
but
into when we look into the story of Jesus, he was said to be gay, because when he was arrested in Gethsemane Park, which was like a graveyard and a park. He was arrested at 4 a.m. With a prepubescent teen boy who ran away from him naked. And there was some sort of a drug involved, because the drug was found or seen around the genitalia of the boy and on the mouth of Jesus. And this is uh, uh, well, that person I'm always quoting, Ammon Hillman. Ammon Hillman, I think it's Ammon Hillman. He's a Greek scholar. He's PhD, and he's the top in his field, or at least one of the top in his field. And he interprets these ancient Greek scriptures, and it tells a different story about Jesus. And he said that Jesus' disciples, they weren't men, they were boys. They're all fucking sex toys, boys. And
Yeah.
so, the mind boggles. But all that stuff is out there. It was written, and it's not denied. It's not
But
denied, you know.
still, Alexander the Great, that was also a manufacturer from Hollywood, 2008, with this movie that was made. And
Right,
there's also quotes from Alexander the Great that actually is very anti-homosexual, where he was offered the boys, and he frowned upon it as something disgusting, so to
right.
speak. So it's a lot of falsity within that. I think it's a lot about uh, making the this homo movement with the rainbow flags more appropriate, so
Yeah,
they
Jewish
muddy
propaganda.
down the history uh, very much, so to speak. You know, if you in a Viking society, would you know what would happen when two men would make such thing together? They would be stoned to death.
Right.
And well, that's more right than we have it today, I think.
But this wasn't frowned upon in the Middle East. It was very, very normal, and it's still normal today.
Yeah, is especially in Afghanistan, it's very normal. They have
Yeah,
a culture where they dress their boys in puber pre-pubertal
prepubescent.
boys in,
Yeah,
yeah, pubescent boys in women clothes.
right.
But that is really as comes from suppression, I think, like because they have so strict rules again around everything, then it
Yeah,
takes out itself that way. And also, I think it also it's not a coincidence that it comes from people that have a lot of inbreeds and so on as well, you know, where they fuck each other's
yeah,
cousins or
yeah,
each
yeah,
cousins and even family members together. So it's from very perverse people and Semites and so on. I
yeah,
think they are a totally different breed in a way. Not that they are necessarily uh, bad or anything like that, but they are not like Northern European, which is actually considered throughout history to be very high breed, so to speak. And
yeah,
I think it actually is that. If I look upon many other people around the world, even I see like, of course, there are all these kind of weird people within this one's own as well. You know, it's not that it isn't dynamic, but I think the further back we go in history, the more closer to truth we come, if there is any truth. In the end, I think it is like that. You know, so
yeah, yeah. This is why I'm saying in my videos that people should read instead of flicking around YouTube, because they're only ever going to get regurgitated 1,000-fold old information. We click on any video and somebody is talking about somebody else. Well, why don't we just go to the horse's mouth? You see, this is what I've done for this past 15 years. I decided if I ever wanted to know anything, then I'm going to look for the oldest literature pertaining to it. And that's what I've done in many, many regions. And then you actually go back to source, and then you come forward from that. And when you come forward, you just engage in a whole bunch of misinformation and shit, basically.
Yeah.
So you just got to go back. And I think a safe space to go back is about 100 years. Go back 100 years, and further, and then you don't have like this Jewish conspiracy thing to pervert everything. Because it's said that they, that of course they owned and create Hollywood to pervert the
Yeah.
nations as
Yeah.
propaganda. They created jazz music to pervert, people into being sexually promiscuous and staying up all night long and drinking alcohol and all these different sorts of things. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, and all that shit's going on. It's still going on, and we can see it. As clear as a bell. And, more and more people are coming out of Hollywood and the music business and going, what a fucking shitfest that is. It's run by fucking devils. They're all pedos and fucking, what have you. They're all fucked up, selling the soul to the devil. Anyway, we've kind of like sidetracked into, a very, distasteful region. So I want to
Yeah.
bring it
In a way, yeah, very
yeah, I
distasteful.
want to bring it back into uh, kind of like the Machiavellian thing and what we was touching on. And I'm saying, and I'm always saying this, and lots of people would think that I'm maybe negative or have a very dismal view of the human being. I have a realistic view. That's the thing. And because of all the very, very prominent, powerful thinkers that I've read in my life, and the vast majority of them, if not all of them, have always had a dismal view of the masses, then I don't think I'm wrong. I just think the idiots today, they're not versed in these great, powerful people, and they're told that we're all equal and the human being is fundamentally benevolent. It's absolutely not. Left to its own devices, we are all fucking devils. And this is the greatest source of investigation with Jordan Peterson. He's been looking for many, many years because as a kid, I think as a 7-year-old or something like that, when he was in church listening to the Bible, he was thinking, why is man so fucking evil? And so it's been his life's journey to try to, discern why man is so evil. And I think he's concluded that it's just because he fucking is, because we are dichotomous, we're paradoxical, like the universe. And
Yeah.
so I watched a documentary about Jordan Peterson about a week ago, and the camera crew were in his house and following him through, his daily activities and something other. And he collects some of these like old African type masks, right? And he was sitting down with one of these masks on, and someone said to him, "So, wow, oh my God, what's that?" And he said it's a particular mask, blah blah blah. And this person said, "Which one's real?" And Peterson said, "They both are." No, the question was, which one's the real you? And Peterson replied, they both are. Peterson knows and he's always stated that, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn, that evil runs through the heart of every fucking man. And
Yeah.
of course, because of his investigation into, the Gulag Archipelago in Stalinistic Russia, Siberia, and I was only listening to something about Stalin before speaking to you, and in that Stalinistic regime, parent would sell child, child would sell parent, lover would sell lover, and there was nothing sacred. They would all be sticking somebody in for profit in relation to the state. That's why the gulags were absolutely jam packed full, and Stalin was killing 1.5 million fucking people like a day. Anyone that said anything, uttered anything about him that was derogatory, they'd all just fucking disappear. And it's just incredible. And then you see what happened with the remaining people of Russia. They all bought into the propaganda, whether they were terrified not to. But then the country ran, under communism for about 100 fucking years, relatively smoothly because of that massive propaganda, you know. And it was only probably with the advent of Stalin's death in pretty recent times that the country came out of that. So I don't have any faith in the human being benevolent at all. I completely discount ever there being a utopia, and I believe that the only reason we've not wiped each other out now is because we are under the strictest of governance of Machiavellian leaders who know how to farm us. They know how to extract our energy, and they're
Yeah,
called useful fucking idiots.
yeah. I don't think there will be an utopia either, but I think, or yes, I think it's possible, that's not in the nearest 1,000 years. So there will probably be, but maybe in 1,000 years or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, well, how would that look? Because in 1,000 years' time, we're all going to be robots.
Yeah, but it will eventually start all over again, and something else will happen that there, like Shiva, the destroyer, and the creator, it will keep on doing like that cyclically.
Yeah, okay, but if we get destroyed and then we start again, then what is always going to be paramount and prominent within us is our animal instincts, the facets of us which is survival of the fittest. And
Yeah.
so I would think that let's say if it wasn't, if we were not going to be overwritten by I would think then the human being, if they didn't kill themselves, eventually they would work out that we've got to iron out certain traits which are related to our ancestry, i.e., primates. We have to eradicate the primal instincts of the desires and the needs and the jealousy and the hate and the one-upmanship. And this, goodness me, there's, you could probably reel off a fucking 100 of them, 100 reasons why the human being could never live in a utopia. Well, how long is it going to take before we eradicate those motherfuckers?
Yeah, yeah. Of course, there's a restlessness within the human mind that always need something. Yeah.
So I was listening to a video, and it was about the voices in your head. The ego is not you. This sort of thing. How to find the self. Who are you? And this video is about 15 minutes long, and it says the voices in your head are not you. Where do these voices come from? You don't know where they come from. Often, you can have, as a female narrator, and often these voices come into your head, and you're like, wow, where did that thought come from? But you've got no idea. And so these thoughts are not you. Well, fuck me. If those thoughts are not you, who are they then? That's a very, very big question. If these thoughts in your head telling you to murder your neighbor and rob your fucking granny and pedo your fucking partner's kid or whatever, if those voices telling you to do all those things are not you, who the fuck are they?
Yeah, either they are you or they are not. And yeah, one can take both views on
Well,
it because one
let's
doesn't really know.
yeah, let's
Uh,
go down the path that they're not us then. Well, let's investigate who could they be.
Demons, it could be like that,
Yeah.
both evil and half evil and all kinds of entities which control our minds if we
Yep.
are not protected enough. so
Yes.
to speak.
Yeah. And you know, I've just read this book. It's called The Book of Spirits, and it's speaking about all this stuff. That there's living human beings communicating with spirits in another dimension, and these spirits say, "Well, there's all different sorts here." In actual fact, what I concluded from reading this book, which is about 400 pages or something, that spirits are exactly the same as human beings, only when they leave this dimension they become etheric. They don't have a physical form, but the consciousness is retained. They retain all the information of every incarnation they've ever had, and they retain a character which they have molded throughout eternity. And so they can be evil, they can be benevolent, they can be very wise, they can be very stupid. And usually the stupid ones are the young ones because they've not had the life lessons. But by the time you get older and wise, like a human being, then we don't do many stupid fucking things, you know, and we're not so evil. But when we are young and full of testosterone, then we're like Alexander the Great. We just want to kill, 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 and conquer, 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 you know, because it feels great. And, you know, someone one day is going to write that Alexander was great. Well, fuck me. How was greatness measured in those days? By the amount of slaughter which was taken place. Well, in which case, then Stalin must be great. Stalin the Great. Genghis Khan must be great. Genghis Khan the Great. You know, Pol Pot the Great. Fucking Mao Zedong the Great. All these people should be called the fucking Great if it's based on how many people they slaughtered. I mean, fuck's sake, you know, isn't it preposterous and it's ridiculous? Why have we been passed down this legacy that a murderous fucking tyrant is great in any shape or form?
Hmm.
It was great because he could kill many people. His armies were great in the knowledge and ability to kill people.
Yeah, the history of human beings are we against them. You know, there's a we and there's a them. You know, we always define ourselves by that there is something else.
Yeah, but the point
Also,
is, you know, the them, you could call yourself great if all these nations were entering into your country to conquer you and you vanquished them. But
yeah.
Alexander took the fight to everybody that didn't even fucking have anything to do or didn't even know of Alexander the Great, i.e., India. He went to fucking India, for fuck's sake, and decided that he wanted to conquer that fucking realm as well. Well, I mean, you know, it's a sickness. It's a pervasive sickness. And so, who the fuck decided to call Alexander the Great? And by what measure of greatness? That's what I'm asking. That's the question I'm asking.
Hmm.
And I think people should be asking that today. And I think, to be fair, that the postmodernists and the liberalists, they have been addressing all this stuff. That's why they've been pulling down statues all over the fucking world because they don't believe that these people were fucking great when they're tyrants and conquerors and
But,
manipulators and
but,
lying
but
politicians and all that. What?
that can also be looked upon. They always want to destroy Western cultures. You know, they don't go around putting down old communist structures and so on. You know,
Mm.
so no matter if like we have kings which has been called like I can't remember the names, but it has been called something bad in Denmark, while the king is called something very good in Sweden. You know, and I
Right.
think, in a way, like we shouldn't tell our children that that was a bad guy because you need some kind of role model instead of getting your role model in school where you get uh, some homosexual dude as a role model or some gangster rapper or something like that. So it's much better to have a kind of heroic person, an aristocrat, than a low life like that, you know?
Well, so therefore we have Jesus, we have Buddha, we have Allah, we have Muhammad, and you know all these sorts of people as role models. Um, and you know they're role models of human psyche, whereas any role models which were born out of leadership in times of war and things like that, they're like, you know, role models in a particular epoch. It's like Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, because he was very, very powerful. He was a powerful and believable leader. During the Second World War, then he was held in great esteem. But prior to that, Winston Churchill was the admiral of the British fleet. And he made abominations of decisions in the 1920s and things like that, where whole fucking fleets got destroyed because he fucked up. And so, his legacy isn't that fucking great. And then the British people, they chucked him out of government as soon as the war was over. Winston Churchill was elected as the leader for both political parties. So he had no fucking allegiance with one or the other. He could jump ship and fucking try and take mastery over whoever would have him. So in the old days with the Labour and Conservative in Great Britain, there were very, very different parties. But within a small space of time, he was the leader of both parties. So go figure on that. Anyway, fucking hell, there's so much to talk about. But I want to come back now to uh, the whole utopian thing. I suppose people could argue it forever and ever. But you see, I'm always coming at it from the position whereby, let's just look at history. I mean, you said, you probably thought there was a time when, and I'm like, well, where the fuck was it? Where is it? Where's the evidence of it? In some sort of Atlantean fucking mythology, or what do they call it? Lumeria, or fucking Sumeria. Where was this
Yeah,
fucking?
yeah, it's very outlandish or very mythological in a way, but that's because it has gone so long time ever since. And of course, we can't say for certain that anything from that is have something absolute truth to it, but we can look at, okay, how does a society look today, and then look back, so to speak, because certainly principle were held much higher in the past, so to speak. It was your neck was on the play if you don't stood up honorable to principles, so to speak.
Well, uh, where, and in what culture? Because it was only like a couple or 300 years ago that Europe was burning people for different opinions, and so
Yeah.
and they were that was the hierarchical system, the Catholic Church and the kings and queens doing all this shit. So, well, fuck me, they were abomination. They were absolutely barbaric, and so we've grown somewhat since that in a positive direction. Um,
I think it has been more like they have thrown shit at every decade. They have thrown shit at the last decade and said made it worse, than it was, and so on.
right.
Yes, there were the witch burnings. Yes, there was like the plague in the Middle Ages, but that was not all the Middle Ages, and it was not everywhere. Yeah, at least Europe, the plague was very prevalent, so to speak. But still, it water it down to the most disgusting aspect of the Middle Ages, so to speak. But there was also space for growth within the hierarchical system because everything had its place and so on. It's
Yeah.
a really good model because if we already know that these people have this capacity, then these people are put in that place and they are born into that place, and these people have this capacity, so they are born into that place, and so on and so forth. And with some amount of possibility to outgrow that certain bracket of the caste or class, then I think that's a good system in a way, because I think the discernment, the further back we go, this is just what I think. I can't say anything for certain, but that if we have fell from spiritual heights, at the highest form of spirituality, everything would have its natural place within a hierarchy, like a artwork on a canvas. Everything is put together so beautifully, uh, right, so to speak, that the godly force draws up the king, and
Yeah.
the king draws up the like warrior cast, and the warrior cast draws, there's like a thread that goes upwards, so to speak. While in when it took a different direction, it was around the French Revolution. Of course, things had been bad for a long time, but still that was even worse. So if we look upon everything that came after French Revolution, you could almost say that everything is left, from fascism, National Socialism, to democracy, and even an early modern democratization could be Martin Luther with the Protestant Church, because he gave more equal freedom within the church. So everything that gives kind of equality is like left in a way. Not that it's called left, but if it's like the system has been turned on the like horizontal instead of upright instead, so that which is really the furthest to the right, that would be monarchy, so to speak, and that which is furthest down is like a communism. But then on that hierarchical scale, if we turn it back up again, then maybe National Socialism or fascism would be in the middle, because they weren't monarchs. They would still have had this egalitarian kind of thinking within it, so to speak, instead of highly
Mm,
hierarchical like that.
yeah.
What do you think? Am I onto something there? Maybe.
Well, I mean, all I do is just go back further, and
Yeah.
when we go back to the Incas, well, the Incas were slaughtering each other. The Mayans were slaughtering each other. Even before the white man set foot in America, the Indians, the Red Indians, the indigenous North American Indians, they all had their tribes. And when I was in Arizona, I was speaking to Indians, and they would know their history, and they would say, "Oh, the most vicious tribe is the Apache, and then you got the Sioux, and this, that, and the other," and they've been fighting with each other for fucking ever. And
Yeah.
so you just look back, and the further the history goes, it can't all be lies. It can't all be fucking conjured up by the fucking manipulators of the world to make human beings look bad. And no, I just think they were fucking bad because they've all got their own folklore and this, that, and the other. And as soon as you get a certain sector of society, they're split into to factions, and then they just want to war with each other. It's human nature. I don't ever think there's been a utopia. I don't ever think there will be. I think the human being is an actual fact, a failed species, and it's just a stepping stone between dinosaurs and fucking robots. And I think that's their only purpose on this planet, really. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I don't dismiss anything of that it was like that also, but also throws out the possibility that it could be like that, and if it do. I mean, Plato in Plato's Republic also talk about a state that is idle state, which like is somewhere up there in the heavens.
and
But
they're all a hierarchical system. There's always a
yeah,
fucking king or a prince, isn't there? And that's the whole thing about it.
yeah,
So therefore, it needs to be ruled. And in one of my videos, I've got the Egyptian crook and flail. You know, and I
Yeah,
think.
I actually saw you held up that on a
Yeah.
video.
And,
Yes.
and so when you look into the history of that, well, all leaders knew that they needed to guide their people with the crook, which is the ancient shepherding fucking staff, but also they needed the flail to beat the fuck out of them or threaten them. So it's always been the same. So anyway, we go on about this one forever. I mean, and this is the thing with human beings, with difference of opinions and everything. But I look for any history or even any mythology, and I can't find it. Because even if you look for the ancient mythology, it's all about war. If you go back to the beginning of Gnostic mythology, then it all starts with, one day there was a god and he got bored and decided to have this, and then he created the devil, and then there's fucking hell. Because it's in human psyche. Human psyche is a schism. It's schizophrenic, and it's got the good and it's got the bad. And even the farthest back that we can fucking find scriptures that were written, it's a depiction of the human psychology. And we're fucking evil. We've got benevolence, but we've also got evil. We need both, otherwise there wouldn't be one without the other. And I just don't think a utopia could survive, because like in this modern day, I'm always calling for the culling of the aged, because it can't go on. We can't keep supporting the old and more old people's homes and better medicine. What the fuck do we want to keep these old fuckers alive for when they are, no beneficial to society at all? And the thing is, if old people are active and they are beneficial, okay, that's their license to survive. But as soon as they become housebound and they're not beneficial, and they don't mean anything to society except a burden, that I think society should address that. And I think it's very stupid and very ignorant and very naive if it doesn't. Because all we've got to do is just imagine what the world's going to look like in 100 years' time if we are, spending all our resources trying to keep the old fucking alive. For fucking what? We should be spending all these resources in a struggling world on educating the fucking youth, for fuck's sake, providing jobs and security and purpose for the youth. Instead, we've not got that. We're keeping the old alive and we're not supporting the young. Why is that? Because obviously there's a global conspiracy for the demise of the human fucking being. It doesn't make sense, Andre. To look at it, what they used to do in all the old tribes and everything like that, as soon as an old person got fucking old, couldn't keep up with the tribe, then they just get fucking left. And that's nature. That's the way to deal with it. They do it in the most compassionate way, but that would be the thing. Now all the silly old fuckers, I want to live to be a fucking 1,000 years old, when they're all skin and fucking bone, shit and piss themselves every day. What's the point of it? What's this stupid mentality that keeps them clinging on to what? To hell. They're clinging on to hell. How can you enjoy being 90 fucking years old?
I don't know. I don't know how you can enjoy it, but yeah. Uh, I mean, as long as one lives, one lives. One can die tomorrow, so uh, it's useless to take one's life. It's better to just live it out, so to
Just
speak.
just live it out. Okay, so in a scenario like what we've got going now,
Yeah.
the world's skint, always crying about, lack of resources and the fucking this, that, and the other, and taxes rising, and heating bills rising, and everything's rising, and we've got a population which is old and infirm, which is rising. And so I would have thought, well, someone's going to address that sooner or later. Hang on, we've got less and less able-bodied people to support the country and generate revenue. So what are we going to do about these that are retired at 65 or 70 and live to be 100? What are we going to do with those? Are we just going to keep catering for them until they grow and grow and grow, until in the end they're going to outnumber the able-bodied people? Well, that doesn't happen anywhere in nature, and so it can't be something that the cosmos is designed to survive.
Yeah.
I just think I'm thinking beyond most people's thinking, because people have got some sort of silly idea about the value of old people, and if you look around the world, unless somebody has actually got a value to society, and they have got an input and they're recognized as the value, then I think we really need to work something out about all those that don't have value. um, because the natural resource drain on everything. And in some of my videos, I'm speaking about, well,
Yeah.
look, the amount of paramedics which are always deployed at one phone call when one little old man or woman has got a tummy ache, like this old woman that lived next door to me. She used to have the paramedics out 5 or 6 times a fucking week, and their vans, often with 3 paramedics in them, will be sitting outside with the engine running and the fucking lights on, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, whilst they are talking to the little old lady because she's got constipation or she's got a little bit of a pain here and that, and then they take her away and then they bring her back. Hang on, someone's at my door. Fucking hell! Just let me put this on pause.
Yeah.
Right.
That old.
Okay. So look, that's my rant, and I do think I'm ahead of my time on this because nobody wants to hear it really. But what is actually happening is governments around the world, they are starting to address it tentatively, and of course, what they're doing is they are offering people euthanasia. And
Yeah.
that you can see that if you're a thinking person, you can see that that's just the kernel of where they want to go. Where they want to
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
is ultimately what they will start to do is to educate people to detach themselves from the elderly, so that it makes it much easier. Look, the human being is so easily programmed, and you can see this because, like, with the advent of Nazi Germany, look at the whole nation, how all of a sudden they just got indoctrinated into believing that they were like the chosen people. They were the Aryan race. Well, fuck me, we've got the Jews thinking that they're the Aryan race. Then we had the Nazis thinking that they're the Aryan race. Then we've got the Muslims thinking that they're the Aryan fucking race because,
Or the higher race, so to
yeah, they
speak.
want to take over the world and this, that, and the other. It's all certain ideology. But all you need to do is to get the fucking kids and, take them from 1 to 7, and then that's it. You've completely formatted them, and you can transform the way they think. And in this last 100 years, it's been a compassionate sort of thing where better health care and all caring for your elderly and this, that, and the other. Well, really, at the heart of people, I don't really think they fucking care. I really don't. And
No,
I think
of course, it's
it's all
fakery.
about money. It's all about money. It's all
It,
propaganda.
it's fake, absolutely. The modern age is fakery right and through. Don't hurt anybody's feelings. Don't hurt
Yeah,
anybody. La da da da, like that. And also, it's it's an age where nihilism is just skyrocketing ever since um, actually since before Nietzsche's days, nihilism has been more and more prominent since people lose their faith in some higher power and so on. And but at the same time, there is a rebirth in certain religions as well, or like maybe not rebirth, but a strengthening of a certain religion that take form. Many convert to Christianity, others convert to Islam, and so on and so forth. But that is like a form of anxiety. They feel like here's happening something here. Let's at least hold on to this scripture so that we are saved, so
yeah.
to speak.
Yeah, it's a fractured psyche The psyche is absolutely
Mm.
fractured because we're moving at an exponentially fast rate that the
Yeah,
human psyche cannot keep up with. And not only that, it's because it's been pulled and drawn in so many fractured directions. And we've got ideas that split whole nations like America into fictitious parties. And good God, it's a cesspool. And so, yes, people, this is why we've got this big, flocking into religions, whether it's Islam or Christianity or whatever. The likes of Russell Brand and then even people like Donald Trump. He now, God must have saved me. And you see, it's very, very powerful in a respect because what he's doing then, he's instilling into the American people, look, there is a God because he saved me. And by the way, what God said in his book, that Jerusalem belongs to the Jews and all that patch of land belongs to the Jews because it was given to them by their God. And so this is now what Trump's going to be doing. It's going to be helping the Jews get rid of the Dome of the Rock, get rid of that Muslim mosque because they want to build the third temple of Solomon on it. And so,
yeah,
do you know also that Trump now is trying to arrange for all of the Palestinians, 1.5 million of them, to be deported out of Israel into, well, out to even of Palestine, well, what they call Palestine, into Jordan and Egypt. So it's the intention to ethnically cleanse that country. Can you imagine in this day and age and what it's going to come down to? Guarantee it's going to come down to God's will because this is why people are all jumping on the Christian bandwagon. You've got Tucker Carlson, who's a big believer in God, and then you've got another one of these news pundits, a British one, Piers Morgan, who's a Catholic, and then you've got Candace Owens in America, who's a Catholic, and you've got all these prominent people. Then you've got Ben Shapiro, who's fucking Orthodox Jew. Good God, you've got all these people with massive platforms. Why are they all religious? Or why they're all turned into religion, and why Trump now is he all of a sudden he's chosen by God? Obviously, that's why he lived, and so he's going to be doing God's work. It's all propaganda, mate.
yeah, yeah. It's back to Machiavellianism again, you know.
Yeah.
But because humans are not only this calculating reptilian kind of aspect, there's more to it than that. I think some honestly believe in the higher force, God, and so on, while also using it for their own purposes. But I also thought about uh, Tucker Carlson. He had one of those paralysis, dream paralysis, where he got attacked by a demon,
Yeah.
and he actually got scars on the
So he
back.
reckoned. So he reckoned, but he never showed them to the camera.
No, but I absolutely think that that is not anything that is far fetched,
Hmm.
because you can get scarred in your face by meeting a demon. I know at least one that has been through that, through doing certain magic and so on, and that is absolutely possible. And also I think that my thought came up, okay, maybe he's on the right path because he got scarred on the back,
Mm.
that what I, if something happens like that to me, I would think I'm under like maybe something tried to hinder me to get something insight to something more here,
Yeah. I would have very much liked him to have gone uh, live with this and not just saying that story to get some sort of medical documentation to back that up. Because, if that actually happened to him, then it was a really, 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 really big deal to have an interdimensional being actually scar you. And if it scarred you, then it must have torn the tissue and brought blood. So he must have had very fresh scars. So therefore, I would, he's got the money to have a forensic pathologist or whatever look at that to see what could have made those scars and write a report on it. Because, when you've got pathologists, they're looking at the why, people have died, and if it's a murder inquiry, then they're going to see with what instrument, they were killed with, this and the other. It all could have been done, and he's got the money for it. And he didn't do none of that. And so then, it's just left to speculation. And so I don't like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And so therefore I think we shouldn't give it any credence. But if he does, and he's professing to be devout and this that, and the other. But so they all are. Anyone that's prominent these days, anyone that's getting pushed forward, are these people. And I think it's all to do with the algorithms. I think it's all to do with powerful people giving these platforms, because they could put the breakers on them if they wanted to.
Yeah, and also it tells something else, that like this kind of people get promoted,
Yeah.
while the first one to go from YouTube was like David Duke or something like that, you know.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So that is the one like person that I have like most belief in when it comes to honesty and so on,
David
because he
Duke.
had taken a lot of hit to begin with. Yeah, he's a Christian too, but I mean, uh, he is touching on something that very few still dare to touch on.
Well, he was always ripping the Jews a new arsehole, wasn't he?
Yeah, and also Kevin McDonald is another one. Do you know
Right.
him?
No.
He has written a very advanced book. I have it in Swedish. It's called Culture of Critic. I don't have it at home, but I have a friend have it at his home, my book. But I never went through it. I bought it when I was 20 years or something like that, and I thought it was very hard to understand. But it's very much uh, how the Jews have affected different sectors of society. But it's the I think it would be the most outlined book in that manner, so to speak.
Yes. Well, in the 1920s, 1920, 1924, Henry Ford, he created his own printing press specifically for printing a magazine which was speaking about what the Jews were doing, because he was very much affected by the Jews trying to suppress him and control him, and do this, that, and the other. And so he wasn't going to be contained by them, and so he started his own printing press. And I forget what the magazine was called now, but it was just speaking about the global Jew. I think it was something like it was called the International Jew.
Yeah, yeah, right, yeah. I
Yeah.
recognize
And
that.
so anyway, moving on now, I want to talk about this.
Yeah,
Now, you see here, it's got Egyptian iconography here.
yeah,
And Hermetica stems, for those that don't know, from Hermes Trismegistus,
yeah.
which means the thrice great. And he is said to be first and foremost Hermes, then secondly Thoth, and then maybe even Jesus. But a reincarnation of all these great people. Now, in Egyptian iconography, Thoth is the scribe, and it's the one with the ibis head. The bird, the pointing beak like this. This is the ibis, a very revered bird in Egypt. And so Thoth is always depicted with a quill in his hand because he was the scribe. He was the one that wrote all this.
Quill. Is that
A quill, it's a bird's feather.
okay?
what they used to write with, dip it in ink.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
so he's
No.
depicted
Yeah.
with the feather in his hand, and he was renowned for being a scribe. And it's said that he wrote many, many books, but none of them have been found. But because he's in Egyptian iconography, and he's said to have been an Atlantean, and the emerald tablets relate to him, and this, that, and the other. So he's very, very well renowned. Now, uh, with all of that hermetica, with the natural laws of the cosmos, it's all very, very profound stuff, and it's stuff that we can see. It's stuff that we've got evidence of. We don't need to believe in a god. And so, what this book is saying is that God is the cosmos. It isn't a thing. It isn't an entity as such. It is the cosmos, or consciousness. And I'm like, for goodness sakes, well, that's what I've been saying for years. And so it's always very, very handy for me to read stuff like this when this book is based on certain scriptures which were
Yeah.
found in the Library of Alexandria and things like that. So even though they say that they're not that old, they say that certain scriptures are 500 years old, or maybe 800 years old, or something like that. And because they are premised on natural law and all that sort of stuff, then they pertain to truth and physics, right?
Yeah.
And so these the Hermetica is about natural law and the laws of the cosmos, and it's about the God of, like, Spinoza's God,
Yeah.
which isn't Yahweh or Jehovah or fucking Allah or anything like
So
that.
Baruch de Spinoza had a
Baroque Spinoza, yeah,
yeah
the
had
philosopher.
a god. Had he a certain god? Was he a hermetic Spinoza?
No, no, he was a Jew.
Yeah, I
Um,
know that. Yeah.
but he got expelled from the Jewish fraternity, and I
Yeah.
don't know how he's extended into Hermetics, but he had the notion of God, which is all pervasive and it's in everything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like idealism, because idealism, everything is in the mind of God, effectively, and
Yeah. One and all. Yeah.
yeah, this is where I've been, for many, many years of my life, instinctively, intuitively. That's what I seem to know. Why do I know it? A priori. Why do I know it without having any Earth experience? Maybe I do have Earth experience of it, but I seem to be endowed with it via my higher self, by my cosmic consciousness, and maybe all the psychedelic experiences I've had, and paranormal experiences that have told me that God is the cosmos and it's no one particular thing, because it's just ridiculous for the human being to anthropomorphize gods, to turn them into human fucking beings and men like Yahweh. Oh, it's a man. Is it fuck a man? What the fuck is all this bullshit? And then Jesus was in the image of God, and we're created in the image of God. Well, it's just very haughty, very stupid, very naive, and very manipulative. What about all the other, gazillion stars and planets and this, that, and the other? Or where's God there? Why did God just choose one tiny fucking planet to be Lord and Master over? None of it works. But, if you just take the essence of God being in everything, and, why I know this to be so, with every vessel in my body and in my consciousness, is because I feel it and I experience it. And when I read these, books, many, many books which say this thing, they tell you that, in a certain state of consciousness, you will enter into samadhi. When you enter into samadhi, you will know that you are not separate from every fucking thing. And it's kind of like a dream in the mind of God, because you're not a material thing. You pertain to consciousness. And so if you have an experience of samadhi, when you meld into the oneness, yeah, you're familiar. You know what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so have you ever experienced that on ketamine or DMT or?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is a typical experience one have. You know. on that kind of stuff. Maybe not all have it, but that is always the things that is very hard to point the finger at. What is really uh, because that is total presence in a way. It's total
Yes, total
presence.
presence. Now, you see,
Yeah,
I've had this samadhi.
absolutely, the total presence. Yeah,
Yeah, I've had samadhi on numerous occasions at different levels, and they've been without psychedelics. And so, if anyone ever leveled at me, well, it's just the drugs. No, it isn't, because I've experienced the same thing without the drugs. So,
yeah. I know you have said that when you were in like meditation very often, 5 hours a day, and so on.
yeah, yeah, and then there was one day when I was just cycling out in the summertime, and I just got off my bike to have a look at a particular tree. Then all of a sudden, my ego just left, and I went into this oneness, and the world stood still, and it was beautiful. It was amazing. It's all for me, all for us. It's all for life, and you do actually feel that there is a God, and He's created everything. Why do we feel that? It's like you see the clouds moving across the sky in such a magical, mystical, mysterious way, and it just feels so out otherworldly. It just isn't like when you look at it with normal eyes. But what I will say is, having taken, you see it very similar like that on DMT, by the way. But what I'm saying is, once you've had those experiences, then you do retain that, and then you do look at the world vastly different, and you see God in everything. Now, Hermetic art is saying that God is in everything. And we can't say this is God, that's God. God is everything, and you can't know God other than to experience God with your senses. And so when you get into this space within your body and in your mind and in your consciousness, and you know that you have entered into the kingdom of God, and this is then what Jesus says, should I say to you, the kingdom of God is within you all, you know, and it is within you and it is without you, but man cannot see. Well, man will never see it unless man has a samadhi, or one of these writers of mystical experience. As soon as man has that, then he can see it, he can feel it, and he does know it, and then your whole world changes. And so that's where I am now, and that's what I'm always trying to convey. But I'm always speaking to the dead, because invariably I can't get anybody that comes back with any level of passion which I can find believable. Because if you've had
Mm.
these experiences, it's a very, 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 very big fucking deal. And it changes your whole fucking world. It isn't just like, oh yeah, I think I've had this, or yeah, someone's had that. No, it's a big deal, and
Yeah,
it really means something. It changes your whole fucking outlook on life. And so this is why
yeah,
in my book I put all these pieces together from all the experiences I've had, and that's why I'm conveying so passionately, so powerfully, what I know to be true and what other people have said is true. You know, uh,
mm,
People like the Gnostics who wrote the fucking, this sort of stuff from thousands or hundreds, at least hundreds of years ago. But the whole knowledge and the essence of this is thousands of years old.
yeah. Mm. Because I know you have come through this samadhi state through meditation, and I think you might have permeated a little more tense than I have. I have done it on like I remember at least one time that it was very intense on LSD, so to speak, where
Right.
the clarity was something extraordinary. Not a single thought in mind, and I just stood, looked out over a field of grass and trees, and the sun was shining, and it was like evening time, and it was pretty warm weather still. Not a single mind. It was just senses, and I could hear all the sounds, all the small sounds overlap each other. You know,
Yeah.
the bees were buzzing, the trees were cracking, everything at the same time. You know, that
Yes.
was like one of the most intense experiences of that kind. Like something when it got abrupted, I felt like fuck. I wanted to be within that state. You know.
Forever. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. But you put the point is you can't function in that state. But when you've had those things and you come back, you will never ever go back to the world you lived in before. From my first out of body experience, from my first deep meditative experience, from my first psychedelic experience, you never go back to that world where you lived before. You have elevated your consciousness. And, you know, over these years, I've elevated it in so many ways, so many profound ways, with or without drugs, with or without meditation, with or without doing anything. You know, these instances have come about which have been really, really powerful. So I was uh, listening to something. No, I was reading it. Yeah, I was reading it in this book, and it's the thing that stuck with me. And I've only read like 70 pages so far. But it's the one line that stuck with me. And it says about being present. And it says, you know, in actual fact, we are not present and we are not in the now. You know, there's this fallacy, you know, like the Eckhart Tolle, the power of now, but there is no now, because if we say now, if we say now, you know, let's say a million times a second, so you've got a millionth of a second, and you say now,
Yeah.
well, as soon as you've said it, even when you're beginning to say it, it's already gone. So there is
Yeah.
no now, is there?
No.
There
The,
can't be any
the
now. So if there's no now, Andre, what is there?
presence, total presence, it would be when one taps into it.
Total presence. Now, you
Yeah.
see what they say about God. Uh, God, if there is a God, then God has to know itself. It has to know its presence. Because if you don't know your presence, if you're not aware, then you're not here, are you? So God fundamentally has to know its presence. And so, therefore, it has to be aware. Now, fundamentally, at the root of what human consciousness is pure awareness. And I've been there for, you know, couple hours. I was in this meditation for 3 hours, and I went into this deepest and deepest of meditation where it was just pure awareness of awareness. Nothing else. There was no body, there was no world, there was nothing, just awareness. And so I knew that I was in the fundamental state of consciousness. And so then when I came out of it, I realized that my consciousness collapsed the wave function, the probable wave function, into a reality, the same as the Copenhagen experiment of the double slit experiment. Yeah, when consciousness collapses the potential into something precise, like instead of a wave of light, an atom of light. You follow me on that?
Not fully.
So, are you very, very familiar with the Copenhagen experiment, double slit experiment?
Yeah, yeah. That is when you look at something and it changes into something else. Yeah, it could either be this or that. It could be a whirlwind or it could be waves.
Well, I mean, what quantum physicists say is that the fundamental state of the cosmos is potential.
Yeah.
It is. There's no matter there. They've discovered there's no matter,
No,
and
nothing tangible, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's potential, and it's consciousness that collapses the potential into a material world. or something that seems material. So
Yeah.
without consciousness, it's just God. It's just the mind of God. But until God actually has awareness about something and collapses it into a dream, then there's nothing.
Mm.
It's very difficult to explain, and you have to experience it. You have to really, really know it. I watched this double slit experiment, the variety of video, hundreds of times. You've got to watch it and watch it and watch it and listen, and listen, and listen, and then you've got to have experience to marry up to it before you're ever gonna even get a fucking smidgen of a glimmer of what that really means. What does it really fucking mean? To for there to be nothing, just pure awareness. You have to experience it. And so
Mm.
what I'm saying now is what it says in this book is there is no now, but there is no material world. There is only God. And so when you've got people like Eckhart Tolle telling us about the power of now, 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 well, of course, that's just for the individual human being, in the matrix who think we are here, who think we are real. But if you look for the reality of who and what you are, you can't fucking find it. It just disappears. If you look for it in quantum physics, it disappears. If you look for it in consciousness, it disappears. If you look for it, with your very, very essence of what you are, if you just get rid of all the shit from the fucking ego, I'm Aaron and I'm English and I'm this and I'm that and I'm fucking I'm. If you get rid of all that and you ask yourself, what are you? You're just pure awareness. That is here, that never ever goes away. And then you say to yourself, well, where is that in time? Well, there is no time. Because you can't say it's here now because there is no fucking now. Because the concept of now is specific and it's here in time. But you could never ever say that you're here now because even just thinking about it, you've moved on, you've moved on, you've moved on. And if you've got a quantum computer which narrows it down to the tiniest, 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 tiniest fragment of time, it's still not going to be there. It's like Zeno's arrow. When Zeno fires his arrow, it isn't possible to ever say where it is. So therefore, it can't be moving because you can never say that it's here now, and you can never.
Yeah, you because you have tried to catch it and put it into kind of even if a miner's framework, it's still a framework, so to
Yes,
speak, and you
you're
can't
trying
have
to
any
bring.
applications on it, so to
Yeah,
speak.
you see, this is where the application of the material world and the fantasy and fiction of time fall down. Because in that particular thought experiment, Zeno proved that they don't exist. They actually don't exist when you look at them like that. So what I'm saying here is now the power of now isn't actually a thing, and we are not actually here as human beings. What is here? God is here. There's no material world. There's no matter. There's no time. There is only awareness. And out of the awareness, there is a dream which is dreaming up everything. And we don't need any time in a dream because, everything is being dreamt together. The whole cosmos is being dreamt together. So we don't need anything to happen before something else to make something else manifest. Everything is happening at the same time, but there's no time. You see, it's like in your dream, when you're in a dream and this is going on, that's going on. Well, where's the time? Where's the reality to that? There's no physical reality, and there's no time of any relevance in there. It just isn't there, is it?
Mhm.
So, well, what is there? Awareness.
Yeah.
So when we look at what we are, we can put it easily see. I don't know, I say put it easily. I speak with people and I don't get a lot of response. It's very difficult for people to seem to get where I'm coming from, and I don't know why that is. It's because the lack the experience or the lack the cognition, or but there's something going on whereby some of us actually really 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 do seem to know something, and we're trying to convey it, but it's really immensely difficult for people to get their heads around it.
Mm.
Well, I take it that by your quietness that you're struggling also.
Yeah, I know I had a propensity to. I'll always try to think about that kind of stuff. Okay, like you also have said in your book about taking away all the nouns and all the,
Language, concepts.
yeah,
Yeah.
and try to see the world from that kind of, it's similar to that, yeah.
Yep.
And you can kind of get a glimpse of it, you know. Yeah, but it's very hard, because you still know from a physical standpoint that okay, I have my hand here, here's the table, but disassociate from all that, and then, yeah,
Yeah, but it isn't
and the
hard.
senses and all that kind of stuff, you
Yeah,
know.
but it isn't hard. It's very, very easy. Now,
Yeah,
think about one region where you can make the whole world go away. You can make the cosmos disappear. How do you do that? You go into the deepest of meditations. When you go into a deep meditation, everything disappears.
yeah,
Except awareness. There is awareness there, there's a consciousness there. It's not like you're fucking dead. It's not like you're unconscious and you can't remember anything. No, there's an awareness there. You can't feel the body. You've forgotten about the body. You've forgotten about the world. You've forgotten about absolutely everything. There's nothing there at all except there's something which is aware and it's vast. And that's what you are. So you can make the world go away. And this is. I don't know. I'm not the only person that fucking meditates. And I don't
yeah,
know why anyone that meditates shouldn't be able to see that in an instant. Because as soon as you do that, you enter into cosmic consciousness. And you leave the fiction of the human being and what you are. It no longer exists. It's only a fucking fantasy.
yeah. With that said, I mean, I must experienced it many times in a way,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I always want to. I might also analyze things until I just stare into an abyss and then think, what's the meaning of everything, you know? And I know that it's good for me to not stare too much into the abyss as well, you know?
Well, I mean, I don't know whether that's not good for you because, like Nietzsche says, when you stare into the abyss will stare back at you. So, look, uh, with Nietzsche nihilism, if you eradicate everything,
Yeah,
then you end up in nihilism where there's nothing in existence. And when you're in
yeah,
that nihilism, then, well, you know what you are. You're nothing.
yeah,
Nothing in a physical way, nothing in a material way, nothing in a conscious way, because the consciousness is a dream. And so when we go into the deepest of meditation, we're not even conscious about everything. You see, in my book, I talk about the difference between consciousness and awareness.
yeah,
And, I haven't heard anybody speaking about these things. And so maybe it's just a figment of my imagination. Maybe it's just some fucking weird shit going on inside my head, but I don't think so. I think I'm really onto something. Because when we go outside of consciousness, and it's not like, I say we go unconscious, because if you are unconscious, then you're not aware of anything. Because if you get knocked unconscious and you come out and you go, oh, what happened? Where was I? But when you go into the deepest of meditation, your awareness never leaves and you are always there. What's you? Awareness, not the body. That's very, very quickly disappears. But the true essence of what you are, cosmic consciousness, God, that never leaves you. And because there's no time, then there's no now. And so when we get our heads around that, well, we absolutely know that this is just a fiction. It's just a dream. It's all Maya, like the Buddhists have said. You know. But
Hmm.
I'm really desirous to speak with somebody that has put things together in a way in which I have, and so they can speak to me about scenarios which show me and tell me that they really know where I'm coming from, because
Because there's a form of frustration to it, also because you want to talk to somebody that have exactly can connect the dots in the way that you have connected it, so to
yes,
speak.
because you know why?
Yeah,
Because if I can't do that, then I slip into solipsism.
yeah.
Like, I am the only thing actually in existence, because
Yeah.
all the people around me, they're just figments and characters in my dream, because they cannot know me. They will never look into my eyes and say, I am you. And I know exactly where you're coming from because I am you. Nobody's ever said that. And so, therefore, nobody can be me. So, therefore, nobody ever could be in my consciousness. Nobody could be in my pool of consciousness. Everybody's in their own worlds. And that's why I'm always saying everybody's in their own fucking world. We do not share worlds. Because if we did share worlds, we'd share consciousness. But we don't share consciousness.
Hmm.
We have to come back from that to the shared pool, which is awareness. Awareness is very different to consciousness. Anyway, probably wrap that one up there.
Yeah.
You know, these sort of conversations, our conversations, they evidently are vastly too expansive and deep for any of our viewers, because we barely ever get a fucking comment. And even when people see me and you speak, it's kind of like, oh, not them pair again. They don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Hmm.
I think
That's strange.
in the initial stages, or Machiavelli, some people have read Machiavelli. They've got some sort of idea about this. They've read 49 Rules to Life and blah, blah, blah. But as soon as you get into the metaphysical, they all fall away.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
So, well, let's just put it to the test. How many people? This is a question now. Please put it down in the comment if you've got to the end. If you found this stimulating and you knew what the fuck we're talking about. Even if you think just a little bit what I'm talking about, but if you don't know what I'm speaking about, when I'm talking about this actual essence of isness, then say that you don't know that. And there's stuff that you need to experience and you need to read, if you want to experience that. How many people do? It's too terrifying for them, because where I am now is I am in a variety of nihilism. I'm in a variety of solipsism, because unless I'm reading things like this, hundreds or thousands of years old, I can't find any fucker that knows it.
Yeah.
And so, that's it. And that's why Nietzsche says if you stare into the abyss long enough, the abyss will stare back at you. And that's exactly what's happened. There was a time, Andre, when I used to be in meditation and I used to ask the cosmos for an increased level of consciousness.
Yeah.
I would say that I uh, am actually willing my consciousness to expand by 10%. And then I'd say 20%. And then I'd say, well, fuck it. I may as well say 100%. Just keep increasing it. And, I never knew when that actually happened. I never felt, instantly that things happened, but something's happened. And, I'm in a realm now which, and how many people come to talk to me these days? Hardly
Hmm.
anybody. Hardly anybody. Even those that think they're really smart, they're terrified of conversations like this. And I don't know how it feels for people. What does it feel like? Because look, you've had certain experiences. You've had the samadhi, you've had deep meditations experience, you've done the psychedelics, and yet you seem not to be able to put all the pieces together because somewhere in your mind it isn't actually bringing it all together. Because if it was, you'd be going, yes, 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 that's it. But you're not. You're just like, um, because there's something missing. What is it you think is missing in your mind, in your consciousness?
I think I'm very critical to my own experience.
Right.
Extremely critical to it. So I'm always suspicious of things. And I absolutely suspicious of myself also.
So if you're suspicious of yourself, then you dismiss everything. And that should be
Yeah.
easier for you because you should very, very quickly end up in the abyss.
Yeah, maybe I am in the abyss.
Look, Andre, Rene Descartes. Are
Yeah.
you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Okay, so what did he do? He sat down in front of the fire one night in 1650 or something like that and decided that he's going to see if he can tear an arsehole into every single one of his beliefs. And he could. And so he could make the whole fucking world go away because he didn't believe in it. It was all a figment of his own imagination. But the only thing that he couldn't make go away was the thought that came in his mind. So he
Yeah.
said, well, because he thinks, therefore he must exist. Something must exist. But you see,
Yeah.
he was a great believer in God. So he's thinking, God's putting words into my mind. He never came to the opinion that he was fucking God. Because at that time, he probably would have been burnt at the fucking stake.
Yeah.
So, even he, with his so-called brilliant mind, couldn't make that leap. He couldn't make that leap outside of the fiction of a God up there putting thoughts inside your head. Well, fuck me, why don't you just say you are the thoughts? You are the cosmos, because he knew that he created everything with his senses. So why couldn't he say he was God? I think probably he knew he was God, but he just couldn't say it at that time. Otherwise, he'd end up like Giorgio Bruno, burnt at the fucking
Yeah.
stake.
Yeah, right. That esoteric guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was before his time. I haven't read much about him, but that seems to be an interesting character.
Yeah. And so these sort of people that have this level of insight, they've come around one in the fucking million, it seems. And I'm always fighting against uh not putting myself on a pedestal. I don't want to proclaim to be a genius. I don't want to proclaim, to be a super guru, super insightful guru. And this is why I'm always talking about it, talking about it, talking about it. I'm always going, have you had things like this? You must have had things like that. Tell me about some of the stuff you have had, but nobody's doing it. Everybody's
Yeah.
just staring at me, and
But
so
when you think about stuff, don't you think sometimes, I want to keep that in my mind for a while before I talk about it, or
no,
you just want to put it out right away?
it's not even that I want to. It just
It's
happens.
just a natural inclination for
Yeah,
you.
look
Yeah.
at all the videos I've made over this 15 years. Just
Yeah.
incessantly. I'm in a constant flow of cosmic consciousness. And I receive things on such a fucking vast level. And people always say, how can you just keep fucking talking and talking and talking and make all these videos about all different sorts of fucking subject matter? I don't know.
Hmm.
I've got no idea where my thoughts come from. And that's why I don't believe in me. I don't believe in this thing. Again, I know I'm the cosmos. I know that I am God.
Hmm.
At source, I know my source. I know my source is cosmic consciousness. and everything else comes out of that. So it isn't the real thing. It's an extension of a thought or projection or an idea. You see, Plato, said this 2,000 years ago. He said everything is form or idea,
Yeah.
and they're just thoughts. There's
Yeah.
nothing, even he knew there's no physical fucking world, physical
Yeah.
matter, because he looked at things, he analysed things, and he said, well, it's just a fucking idea. A chair, a wheel, a cart, a
Yeah.
fucking toga, just a fucking idea,
Yeah.
you know? And that's it. This is why idealism is so powerful, because it's as clear as day for anyone with a thinking mind. It's just a fucking conglomerate of ideas. Because if you take language away, if you take concepts away, there is fucking nothing here. And that's not difficult to do, because if you just say, take away the concept of microphone and metal and black and all these fucking words that pertain to this, then what is that? And you go, then you think of another word and you go, take that away. Then maybe think of another word, take that away. And then it's kind of like, well, if I can't think of words and if I can't express what things or people have told me, then I can't create this. I can't bring it into existence, because it isn't actually in existence. And some people could say, oh, it is there because look, it's metal and it's hard. Take away metal, take away hard, to take away all these things that we perceive about it,
Yeah.
because
And the
only
feel
concept,
and yeah,
yeah, take
everything.
them all away. It's just a simple, I think, rational thought experiment. I can very, very quickly just make everything go away, and I'm just in the void. And it's only when I collapse the probability of the wave function that I bring things into existence. So if we look at what human beings have done since the beginning of time, they've labeled things. You see, if a baby comes out of the womb and uh, is brought up by dogs, which has happened,
Yeah.
then they only know things related to dogs' world. They walk around on all fours, they sniff arseholes, and everything they eat it by eating it off the floor or licking it like a dog. They have never actually worked out that they've got fucking hands and they can use them. So you see how we are just pure programmable matter.
Hmm.
You would have thought that a human being, if it's genius and it's this brilliant thing of evolution, you would have thought at some stage in its development, being brought up by dogs, it would say to itself, I'm not a fucking dog, and start walking upright. But there's
Yeah.
documentaries that you can watch about one particular girl. She's 14 when she was found. She was brought up by dogs.
Yeah. And the one by monkeys as well, I think I
Yeah,
seen
yeah, yeah.
something.
Monkeys and so, well, they've got no fucking level of humanism or intelligence at all. No more than a monkey or a dog.
Hmm.
So we can see that
Then they slip
everything.
into an egregore of a dog. One maybe could
Yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. They have the morphic resonance of a dog.
Yeah.
And so therefore you can see, well, that all these so-called millions of years of evolution meant nothing. Absolutely fucking nothing. Because none of those attributes of a human being were carried forward, because that person wasn't brought up by a human being. I think what happened is with these dogs is that this kid was an abandoned kid, and he was left with the dogs, because the person, the mother was probably sick, probably mentally sick, and she used to feed the fucking dogs, and then she'd forget about the kid, and then she probably discovered that, well, the dog's fucking the kid's living and eating the fucking dog food. So she just kept feeding the fucking dogs, and she became a dog, for
Hmm.
14 years,
Hmm.
you know? And then there's another scenario where a girl was kept in a drawer. When she was a baby, she was put in a fucking drawer in the basement. And then she was never let out the basement. And she knew nothing about the outside world or anything like that. She was kept in a fucking dungeon. And apparently she was sexually abused by her mother or father, but, just
Sounds like Fritz. Uh,
Fritz.
yeah. Joseph Fritz, he who kept his daughter in the basement.
Right, probably that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah, you see what gives me, what can I say, solace. What gives me spiritual comfort is when I do actually read it. In lots of books.
yeah.
So there are people out there who know it, but if you speak to the masses, then you got to find one in a million that know it,
Mm,
and that's how it is.
yeah. I have a similar book here, The
Right?
Kabbalion.
Yeah.
Here's another Hermetic book. It Corpus
Corpus
Hermetic.
Hermeticism. Yeah,
Yeah,
I read that. I bought that when you said. I
yeah,
bought that and I read it.
yeah. It's a decent book, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, then there's this by Julius Evola, The
Right.
Hermetic Tradition.
Uh-huh.
That is very very. I mean, so much information in it. You know.
Right. And so, what is he saying then? Because with Julius Evola, it's all about power and everything. So, how does he marry Hermeticism up with his idea of power?
Yeah, I have had a very hard time getting around this book. I read it for the second time in the book reading we used to do, you know,
Right.
now. And my friend grasped it a lot better, but he goes into so many different things. He goes into uh, Jesus, he goes into different authors and so on. But it is based on the Hermetic tradition, one and all, and so on. And he goes into a kind of a little bit of astrological things as well, but he also goes into the symbolism of the different things, like this symbol is for the sun, this symbol is for sulfur, and so on. And it's like really a decipher language, which he tried to show how this kind of decipher language works. And
Is
I
he talking
find it
about
very,
alchemy?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
So I
I
kind
think
of found
that book might be interesting to me. What's it called again?
the Hermetic tradition.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what you make of it, because I know that some people I have read about on the internet that have gave it reviews and so on, says that read it a second time and you get to grasp it even more and so on.
I
But I
suppose.
think it's the process, yeah. This book is something I have thought about. I would think would be interesting to hear your perspective on, actually, because for me this is like yeah, like a psychedelic experience in a way, because it's so strange and outlandish in a way.
Right. So what? Well, the whole resurrection is outlandish and strange.
Nos Book of Resurrection by Miguel Serrano.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Why is it so outlandish and strange? Other than it is outlandish and strange.
It's I can read behind so you can see what's so strange about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
This work possesses all the defects needed to defeat time. It is neither a poem, nor a novel, nor a philosophical essay, although it does contains a little of each of this. Miguel Serrano.
Right.
And I just I find it very interesting, but it's one of those books that is very hard to get head around. He talks about, he was a friend of Carl Jung. He was a friend of Carl Jung, though. You
Right.
and you could see how he was from Chile, so he associate things to Chilean culture in a way. Also in it, here's like the chakra system and kind of stuff like that. And this is behind the book and so on.
Right.
This I bought on a page called Lulu,
Oh yeah.
and
Publishing company.
yeah, because if you buy this on Amazon, I think it was like extremely expensive. I think I don't want to exaggerate, but I got shocked when I looked at it. It was like um, 900 euros or something. What the fuck? But you buy it from Lulu, you get it for like 7 euros or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
something like that, but as a normal book, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I never knew that you could actually buy books from the Lulu site. I thought it was just a publishing site. I buy my books mostly. I buy most everything. I don't buy it from Amazon because they're too greedy with the delivery. I buy it from eBay. There's no delivery with eBay.
Ah, okay, I see. I didn't know that
Yeah,
that
because
was the
Amazon
thing.
want to charge you about €5 to deliver anything. So yeah, eBay doesn't charge for delivery with anything.
Yeah, yeah. I think Lulu is pretty okay with the payment for delivery also.
Right.
Because I only bought this and everything became like, yeah, it was maybe 5 euros in delivery, but this book was still very cheap in a way.
Yeah. You see, my book. If I want to send my book in the United Kingdom, it will cost me £5. But if I buy my book from Amazon, it costs me £7.50. So they obviously got a fantastic deal on the delivery. They're paying next to nothing because they've got such a concession. Because they're probably paying, I don't know, 50 cents for the delivery, because
Yeah.
the whole printing cost and delivery only cost £7.50.
Hmm,
Yeah.
I see.
But in recent times, I sent a couple of my books to somebody who living in Ireland. And Ireland isn't in the United Kingdom. Only Northern Ireland is in the United Kingdom. And so I got charged £18 each for the delivery of this book. And then when it got to Ireland, they were charged something similar, about another £15, because it was outside of Great Britain. And so for my book to be delivered to internationally would cost like fucking £30 when you can buy the fucking book for £20 from Amazon.
Hmm.
So it doesn't make any sense, and this is why it's difficult. For if people wanted signed copies, it's not practical if they live outside of Britain. But I can do it in Britain, and so if they pay an extra £5. Anyway,
Hmm.
we've done 2 hours and 20 minutes, Andre. We've had a right good chat, um,
Yeah.
and
And go in and check Lulu also because that would be interesting if you check this book out, you know.
right, I'll put that down as well. Nos by Emmanuel.
Yeah, Nos Book of Resurrection by Miguel Serrano.
Oh, Miguel Sal, Nos Book of Resurrection.
I can send you the link to it also if you
Ah, I'll
don't
find it.
want. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. So, well, um, I suppose that I should be tired by now of saying, "Oh well, let's see what the viewers think of this conversation," because I never think any fucking thing of it. And if they do think something of it, then they can't articulate it, and so as far as we're concerned, it doesn't happen. But we have had the conversation. We
yeah,
have grown somewhat from it. There's been a purpose for us, and I suppose that's as good as it gets. You know,
yeah.
I do like to record all of my conversations with everyone I speak to because I think, well, somewhere in our conversations there must be something of benefit to somebody, and
Yeah.
I always think it's selfish, and this is why I used to get annoyed with Paul because he would never want to come on video, in the later days, and I'm like,
Mm,
well, look, I don't feel entirely comfortable coming out and spending 4 hours with you speaking about all this stuff and then not being able to share it with anyone. I think it's selfish. I think it's fucking pointless, mostly because I know it all. So why do I want to
mm,
waste my fucking breath and my throat if I can't record what your questions you're asking or your response? Because, oh, you
mm,
don't want your voice out there on the world. Well, what the fuck? I don't know. I can't get
mm,
my head around that stupid mentality.
mm. Maybe some form of a paranoia or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I called him Mr. Nobody because that's what he wants to be.
Mm,
And he kind of likes that moniker. But if he's Mr. Nobody and he's comfortable with that, well, what does it matter who listens to what he fucking says? It shouldn't
mm,
matter at all, should it?
mm,
Only if you're insecure and uh, he's got this idea in his head that he wants to leave this world without a single trace of him ever being here.
mm,
And I was thinking about him today, and I'm like, well, the only reason he exists at all in this world, as far as any of my viewers are concerned, is because of me. I've breathed life into him. It's like I was God in the Garden of Eden, which made Paul out of clay. I believe
mm,
breathed life into him, and then I introduced him to my viewers, and then Paul became somebody, But
yeah.
now Paul doesn't speak with me online. Then he's a nobody again. And he doesn't even
Mm,
speak with me, by the way. He has not spoken with me about a year now. He just has to go in himself and be nobody. He really just wants to be nobody, but he's not brave enough to kill himself. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't appreciate life really, but he's not brave enough to
mm,
kill himself,
mm,
and he's not brave enough to take any level of psychedelics either. He's scared of that.
I see. Mm.
So if he doesn't think he's anybody, and well, why are you afraid then?
Huh. Yeah, that's a peculiar existence in a way.
It's very peculiar. Look, he had this near death experience, and I said, well, if you've had a near death experience, then you know what it's like to fucking die. Well, why are you afraid of taking psychedelics?
Mm.
And he went, well, if you had what happened to me, he ate this little bit of fucking marijuana on one occasion, and it was quite strong. And he said he had an out of body experience, and he ended up in the fucking corner of the room looking down on his body slumped down, and he got so paranoid and scared he had to call the ambulance. He went into fucking hospital. And so he doesn't want to take any higher psychedelics in case anything like that happens again. I'm like, well, fuck
Yeah,
me. That's what's going to
but
happen
but
to me
it,
when I die.
cannabis is I never liked it, and I have tried eating it as well, and it were held me in for like 15 hours or something. I mixed it with fat and warm water, and it was very potent. And I yeah, I just flew out of space.
Right.
But it was not a likable experience because I don't like cannabis at all.
Yeah, I don't like it. And in my
I
book,
was just waiting for hours on end to through getting out of it because it was.
yeah, yeah. And I hear people on that. And, this is why I don't take mushrooms that often. Because, and, I haven't never took acid because I don't want a 10-hour trip. I want to get in and when I want to get out. I'm going to take some acid at some stage because I've got to. But I know my mind won't allow me to stay in that state for 10 fucking hours.
Acid is such a beautiful thing. You don't get so. You don't yawn a lot like you do on
Yeah,
mushrooms, and you get
mushroom.
like more intense, on LSD.
Right. Yeah. Well,
It's so beautiful. I really like it. Um, it's easier when you're taking it a lot. It's easier to like understand the patterns within LSD in a way,
Yeah,
but it's extremely beautiful to be out in nature on it and
yeah.
so on. You know.
Well, this summer I'm going to be taking it because I've got 2 tabs. But what I always do with mushrooms is because the first time I took a high dose, like 5 grams, I was in it for 10 hours, and
Yeah,
it was too long and it was massively exhausting, really exhausting.
yeah,
So subsequent times when I've took it, I've said to myself before, I say, I don't want no 10-hour fucking bullshit, fucking energy draining trip. I want to go in quick and I want to come out quick. And I want 3 hours, 4 hours max. And you know what? That's what I get every single time. And
mm,
so we can create our own fucking reality.
yeah,
And so all you got to do is to set what experience you want before you go in. You know, because
yeah,
if you don't set that, then your mind doesn't know what to do with it, and your mind just
yeah,
gets carried away. But if you set it, then look. Also, I've always been able to do this with alcohol. When I used to drink certain amounts of alcohol and I feel myself getting drunk and pretty uncontrollable, I would instantly just snap out of it. I'd say, "Oh, that's enough. That's enough. Come back," and within 10 minutes, I'd be fucking sober.
yeah. It's
Mind
like
over matter.
hypnosis. You hypnotize yourself to get
Yeah,
out of it.
yeah. Yeah, and so the power of the mind, it's an absolutely incredible, wonderful thing. All right, then, mate. So until the next time, well, read that book, and I'll listen to a few more documentaries about it, so I'm more familiar with it. And then, I'll be nice to hear your thoughts on it, and how you compare it with modern world, and see what the fuck's happening.
Yeah,
All right, dude.
yeah. It was a great conversation.
Yeah, as always, mate. As always,
Yeah,
we never have a bad one, do we?
yeah,
And I think you and we've been communicating the longest.
yeah,
We've been doing it for some fucking years now,
yeah.
and we've had a lot of conversations.
Yeah, I don't know how many. Last year we maybe had over 20 conversations. You know,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
25. I don't know.
yeah. I think throughout our time we've had in excess of 150 conversations.
Yeah,
Because when we was doing the book thing, that amounted to about 30 hours because
yeah,
I counted, I think, 12 sessions and each one was 2 hours. So that's at least 22 hours.
yeah,
And some of them were longer. So, yeah. Um, uh, well, I mean, it would be nice if people appreciated what we were doing and how we were thinking about things, because I just don't get it. I just don't get what sort of viewers I've got. They're not philosophers. They're not psychoanalysts. There's a few people that have got world experience, and they're awoken due to trauma or this, that, and the other. But they're not philosophers. They don't study philosophy. They're not psychoanalysts. They don't study their own psyche and this, that, and the other. So they know a certain amount, and they watch a lot of YouTube. So there's a certain amount of information that they've got, but that's limited. It's
yeah,
limited, and so I'm looking for somebody that's got all these fucking things going. And
yeah,
you and we can talk about all these different sorts of things.
yeah.
And there's not many that can, is there?
No.
So on that note, then enjoy the rest of your evening, mate.
Good
And
goodness.
just drop me a line when you've read that book and you want to go again.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Andre.
Yeah.
See you later, dude.
See you.